Hey, soil mates. Welcome to Men Metal Mayhem, the podcast where the brothers men take a deep dive into the discographies of our favorite metal bands. I'm your host, Brother Paul, joined as ever by my two brothers and co-hosts, Brother John
Top of the morning to ye.
and Brother Dave.
Greetings and salutations.
Each season of the show, we are focusing on one band. In season one, Songs of the Damned, we are covering Soilwork. Today, we are talking their grandiose EP, A Wisp of the Atlantic. Join us as we face the nothingness and the devil. All right, so this EP was released on December 4th, 2020. Brother John, why don't you break down the top 40 for us for that week and tell us what you were up to in late 2020?
With pleasure, Brother Paul. Well, in those days, I was not really listening to anything from the radio, so I was not too familiar with the top hits of the day. But number one was Life Goes On by BTS. Have you ever even heard of that song?
I've heard of the band. They're part of the K-pop revolution, which has swept over the nation.
Yeah, that's more or less what I understood. I listened to it earlier today for a number one hit. Didn't really hit me very hard, so I don't know. And then number two on that day was Mood by 24K Golden featuring Eon Dior, something like that. I never heard that one either. It was fine, but here's where it gets good. So number nine, Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. I always did kind of like that song, as well as some other stuff that The Weeknd has put out.
Yeah.
But number 14, I mean, this was December. Any guesses on what number 14 could have possibly been?
Oh, I think I have a guess. Mariah Carey?
You are correct, sir. All I Want for Christmas Is You. And of course, it's probably a perennial top 40 chart topper, I would think, just because it's everywhere that time of year. But then maybe my favorite that I noticed on the top 40 from that week was WAP by Cardi B, featuring the line, I want you to park that big Mack truck right in this little garage, among a ton of other classic lines. But that song is just so hilarious. So, it's fun to just pop on the radio or pop on, the MP3 player, whatever, every once in a while, and
I
just, sing along a little bit.
Anytime I hear about that song, I just think of Ben Shapiro doing his dramatic reading about it and talking about his wife's dry ass P word.
Is this like a parody thing? That he didn't actually do that, did he?
Oh, he did.
What?
So
I'd have to look it up maybe to see
not
what
quite
this is all
so
about.
directly, but yeah, he got into some moral outrage that wet ass P word was a popular song. And then he was saying that any woman who was experiencing that was like having medical issues and they should go to their doctor. And his wife is a doctor and she never has that or
Oh my
something
God.
like, yeah. And then I think he got
Congrats,
some
you played
backlash.
yourself, Ben Shapiro.
Exactly. And then I think he dug himself deeper into the hole with his responses to the people making fun of him. So
think?
it's good times.
Well, I'm all about that WAP, so that song, a banger. Um, let's see, what was I doing when that album came out? So December 2020, I think we were all experiencing the same sort of depressive COVID lockdown lifestyle, and maybe it was even a little worse for me and Sadie because our second child had been born May of 2020. So at this point, we had like a 3.5-year-old and a 6-month old. And, times was tough with little kids, well, Dave, you don't have any kids, but Paul, you know what I'm talking about.
I feel ya.
The stress is real. But, oh man. So, we used to live in this nice little neighborhood, sort of like while there's like a couple cul-de-sacs kind of branching off each other, and there's no outlets in our neighborhood. So it was a nice sort of contained place in Fond du Lac, and we would go on walks, and there's like historic looking houses that were kind of fun to look at. And so, we go on walks and have like the baby in the stroller or whatever. And so, height of COVID. And well, this was probably like closer to the summer. So it was pretty nice out. But this guy was out, in front of his house, and he just like started talking to us, just a neighbor that we had never seen before. And he was lamenting. He's like, oh man, I've got, I don't know if it was two or three cats, but he was saying how like COVID was so difficult for him and like taking care of these cats. And we just looked at each other like, this fucking idiot. Are you serious, bro? Cats? Fuck you. Because we're like sleep deprived, like on our last last thread of sanity with the kids. But anyways, so I hope he's doing well now. Hope he's figured
Got
out a
those
way to
cats
cope with
under
his
control.
cats. It's like good grief. Oh man. But I can say December 4th, the day this came out, specifically was dog night in our household, and I had 4 hot dogs that night with Hawaiian style potato chips and a Bundaberg lemon lime and bitters soda. It was amazing. And for any of you who don't know, I love hot dogs. And so I used to
Gotta
always
get those
post,
glizzies.
oh man, yeah. When it comes to glizzin, I would say that I am the throat goat, just gobbling them down. But yeah, I'd always post pictures of the hot dogs on Instagram, and sometimes you'd look at whatever, you could see like 9 or 12 little squares on your Instagram thing, and like the majority of them would just be pictures of hot dogs because I love them that much. Oh, another fun thing from 2020, the game Descent: Journeys in the Dark. There's an app you can play it solo, and like the app kind of controls the dungeon master or whatever. So I did like a 4-handed solo run through of one of the campaigns, and it was 43 hours over 19 plays. This was over a couple months span of time. Just, me getting immersed in a fantasy dungeon delving world, rolling dice, slaying monsters. And it was one of the greatest gaming experiences, like board gaming experiences that I've had. It was great. Should do that again sometime if I could ever find the time. That's the hard part. So, Brother Dave, what were you up to in late 2020?
Yeah, I mean, 2020, COVID happened. And so my fun COVID story is that my in-laws in January of 2020 had decided to visit for a month from
From
China.
China.
So, yep, from China. And as they were like all the news of COVID happening kind of came out in that January, and then all travel got shut down. So I got to live with my in-laws for the next 9 months. And, it was not the best situation I've ever been with, but we made do. It was a little weird because like they were still working at the time. They're not retired, so we had to figure out how Chinese people could work from home in like a fully different country. And you know, just a whole lot of weirdness of having 2 extra people in your house the whole time that you got to take care of because they don't speak a lick of English. But we made it through, and none of us caught the Rona. So overall, well, we didn't catch it until after the big the worst times were over. So the hospitals weren't overwhelmed or anything once we finally got it. Um, yeah, I mean that's basically my real life, what was going on. Oh, I guess the other exciting thing that was going on in my life is I got back into playing tabletop RPGs. I found a group online, and it was real nice to have that like social outlet during lockdown. And I've been with that group for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at this point, and they're awesome people. And
Nice. We
go
did
play
one for a
games
little
online.
while. Was that like 2020? Probably with
Yeah,
Jerry also.
2021.
yeah, it
Okay.
was
Yeah, that was pretty
around
fun.
then.
It's
Yeah,
always
it
really hard
just
for me to get scheduled though,
you boys with your kids and your
It's
schedules.
that's a deal breaker, ladies.
Yeah, it's tough, but it is a lot of fun when it happens. Um, Musically, what was I doing? I think I'd kind of locked in my new solid group of bands that I'm listening to. I was spinning a lot of Protest the Hero. They had a new one. Spoiler alert for the next section. Palimpsest came out in 2020. Um, had some Flesh God Apocalypse. Veleno came out 2019. Got Cherik Spin had a new one, Gold Dash in 2020, and Diablo Swing Orchestra had Pacifisticuffs in 2019. All bangers. Even if
Paul's
Paul
just shaking
shakes
his
his
head. It's like
I'm gonna
no,
be such
no.
the fool when we do them on this podcast and I end up really liking them.
Yeah. You'll really have some egg on your face then.
Yeah, well.
Um, so that's what I was up to, brother Paul. Tell us about yourself.
Oh boy. What a rough fucking year 2020 was. So my wife is an ICU nurse. So she was seeing the very worst of COVID, and she was doing it while pregnant with our son, who was born in that August. Um, and it was a rough pregnancy to begin with, coupled with, oh, here's this world-changing event that nobody really knows what's going on. Um, and it really, really fucking sucked. It's hard to overstate how terrible the COVID pandemic was for healthcare workers. That will be germane possibly in the next episode as well. Um, and I was working at a job, thankfully, that so we got classified as essential, so we weren't all laid off and forced to go to the bread line.
Wait
But
a minute. Was
more,
this the job where you were selling high-end stereos to rich
no, this
people?
was a new one.
Oh,
Because
okay.
that
I was
one,
like, essential? Maybe.
yeah,
Depends who
rich
you ask.
rich people need their $17,000 grills. Um, no,
The
this was
Viking
one.
range.
This
Yeah,
was
baby.
this was one. We did printers and copiers and stuff for like hospitals and stuff, any business. But since we did like hospitals and government stuff, it was like, okay, it's essential to have the printers up and running. So uh, we're wasn't laid off, which was great. But more and more people kept leaving my team, so the work just I kept having to do more with the same amount of time. And I was, very fastidious. I liked it had to be done a certain way. It had to be done right. And I was like, I what do you want me to prioritize? Because I cannot be doing all of this, and you keep handing me more. And you're like, oh, just do the best you can, which is the most unhelpful phrase to hear from a manager. So I was burned out with a newborn and, a wife who's in the thick of it. So it really sucked. But it was a great year for discovering new music. I didn't have Spotify at the time, but I found out you could just listen to full albums on YouTube, which is really nice. And I got really into classic death metal bands like Bolt Thrower and Aborted and Morbid Angel. I know were on a lot of repeat for me. And then just a bunch of random black metal bands. The one that sticks out to me is the band Halfist. They're not necessarily great, but they're there, and I'm like, I enjoy them. So wasn't all bad. And with that, let's turn to the year in metal. And from our mainstays, we have Dark Tranquillity coming out with Moment. Um, I think it's a fine one. It's not as great as some of their other stuff. It's just it's a standard Dark Tranquillity album, as I recall. Um, Catatonia came out with City Burials, and I'm going to confess I haven't really listened to a lot of Catatonia post. Oh,
Dead End Kings, probably.
what's the one
That
before
was
Dead End Kings?
was it the Great Cold Distance?
Yes, The Great
Those
Cold
Yeah,
are
there it
Distance.
is.
Oh, is
Yeah,
Yeah,
that the one
Great
you're
Cold
thinking
Distance
of?
is,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
those two
that's
are
a
both
great
great.
album.
But
Oh,
those are the only two I really know.
Night is the New Day. I think that one was also pretty good.
That one was, yeah, that one was good as well. But yeah,
And
I
then
gotta
Dead
listen to
End
more.
Kings hit, and it just didn't
It
do it for
tanked
me
it.
anymore.
Yeah. So I gotta listen to more kind of more recent Catatonia, see how they're doing. Um,
Hmm.
let's see, we also have the Black Dahlia murder with Verminous, and mentioned before, Protest the Hero, uh, Palimpsest.
Whitewashed Tomb. It's a song. It's a concept album about the United States of America, written by our Canadian neighbors.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll have to do that one. Um, and not a final album, but Alexi Laiho of Children of Bodom passed away on December 29th of that year. And if we do a season on Bodom, I think we're gonna have to address it more fully. But at this point, I just remember this one being tough because Bodom was just a real formative band of our youth. I mean, their first four albums, especially Follow the Reaper,
Oh
were
yeah.
huge, I think, for all
Hmm.
of us. So
And
that was a tough one.
he wasn't old.
He
He
was
was in his
41.
40s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
41, which younger than me now.
yeah.
It's like, good grief. But
So
it said online, alcohol-induced degeneration of the liver. So I guess all the hard drinking caught up with him before he was even very old.
yeah. Um, but moving on to our selected works, it was another great year for Gothic and Doom bands. My Dying Bride came out with The Ghost of Orion, and I like My Dying Bride, but they are kind of in the Amon Amarth camp of let's just release variations on the same album, but
If
they
it ain't
do it
broke,
well. Yeah. Paradise Lost came out with Obsidian, which is really good. Draconian, who's a little more gothy, came out with Under a Godless Veil. Um, Dark Fortress came out with, oh, actually, this might be their final album, Spectrums from the Old World. And they're kind of a melodic black metal band from Germany. And they got some good albums. And then finally, I want to highlight the band Svalbard came out with When I Die, Will I Get Better? Um, and this is a post-hardcore kind of post-metal album. And I wanted to highlight it because it's really fucking good. And they're female fronted. And I know we've mentioned a couple of times how the metal scene is kind of a large sausage fest. So, you know,
yeah.
It really is.
yeah. So let's move on to
Well,
Soilwork.
hey, Paul,
Oh, yeah.
there's
I always forget
you
about
missed
you.
you missed a couple that I just want to give quick shout outs to. Um, and Sephirum that are they I forget where they're from. I think they're Finnish, maybe, but
Sounds
they're
about
a
right.
folk metal band. But they came out with Thalassic, and they're like pretty consistent across their albums. Everything they put out is pretty good. I know that I've listened to that one a couple times, but I don't recall it too specifically. I used to listen to them way more back in the day. Their first couple albums got a ton of play for me. And just earlier today, I saw as I was looking at what had come out this year, Metallica came out with an album called S&M 2. Dave,
What?
are you aware of this? There's S&M 2,
I
and
wasn't
it
even
came out in
aware of this.
2020. I know it. I'd never even heard of it. So I don't know what songs they did. I assume it's just like more recent stuff, but done with symphony backing or something like that. But might have to give that a
Weird.
spin.
Yeah. Give it a
Check it
spin, see
out.
what they do.
Yeah. And our good old buddies in Fintroll came out with Vredesvavd. I have not heard that one, but since we've been talking about all the albums that have come out, it's like Fintroll came out with a bunch of stuff since I probably last listened to them, and I gotta check out their entire discography because
Catch
they were
up on
always really good.
they
Exactly.
are.
And then the last one I wanted to mention, Mors Principium Est, who, Paul, I think this was maybe the one that you said you liked the most that you listened to, but they came out with the album Seven.
Yeah.
And I haven't listened to this one quite as much, but it is pretty legit. I have checked out a couple times. So, that's what I've got to add.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And now let's move on to Soilwork themselves. No lineup changes on this one. And 5 years after his departure, they still have not replaced Olaf Flink on bass. Though we do get a little man named Rasmus Ehrenborn providing bass tracks on tracks 1 and 5 for this album. So this album is produced once again by Thomas Pleck Johansson, and cover art provided by uh, Georgia Carteri, who will eventually become Mrs. Speedstrid. Um, this entire album is the creation of Mr. David Anderson. 5 tracks, each of which has a video, just under 37 minutes. And let's get into it, starting with the epic title track, track number 1, A Whisp of the Atlantic. Brother Dave, as I think maybe the most technically minded of us, give us your thoughts. And this one, it's a 16 and a half minute track, so we might be here a while. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts on this?
I mean, this song features a lot of Soilwork tropes that we've come to know and love. We've got some like proggy, jazzy stuff at the beginning, which classic David Anderson at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's mid-paced, which most long songs are going to be kind of mid to slow pace. That's just kind of how it goes. We've got some blast beats at parts. We've got the old rat tat tat coming in at about 12 minutes. We've got some black metal chords around 13 minutes. We've got a quiet part with horns and pianos. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. And in isolation, I think all of these parts are good. But after 16 minutes of this song, I'm kind of ready for it to be done. There's not enough changing or like new and gripping stuff in here to really draw me in. Um, I couldn't tell you what the chorus is. And it's just like the hooks aren't really there for me here. I want to like it more than I do because I do like a really good long song. I love Opeth. I love Moon Sorrow. But this felt like it was a long song written by someone not accustomed to writing long songs. And so it was more experimental and less dialed in, right? That's kind of that's kind of my takeaway on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess how do you even approach like a 16 and a half minute long pseudo prog song written by like a melodeath band? Also, there is a ton of flugelhorn in this track. It's so much. And like wonky piano bits. And to his credit, like David Anderson was like, I wanted to write a really ambitious, almost pretentious song. And he set out to do that. But I echo a lot of what you said. Like parts of it are good, but when they're all stitched together, it doesn't have quite the flow. Like I mean, yeah, I love Opeth, Moon Sorrow, Cult of Luna's another one. A lot of post metal
Hmm.
has super long songs, which I enjoy. Um, but this one does feel long. And one of the big things is this song straight up ends at 14 minutes and 30 seconds. And
Yeah.
then
And then
they're
it
like,
doesn't.
and then he's like,
Yeah.
shit,
They
I
do a
got,
fake ending.
yeah,
It's like what?
They also do kind of an ending at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. And
yep,
you're like, this could be, but then it like quickly comes back. But
yes.
like
Oh
the one
yeah.
you're talking about, it fades out and it's done. And then it's like, nope, we're back.
Well, because he's like, well, shit, I got the studio booked for the flugelhornist for another 30 minutes. Let's let him just improvise a bit, and it gets real wonky and atonal. And that, but yeah, again, like, it does stop somewhere in the 8 minute range, and you're like, okay, this could be the stopping point. Um, I mean, there are some moments that kind of stuck out to me. He has the phrase "the orgasmic rise of liberty" at 5:15, and
So patriotic.
Is
well,
that what
hey,
we're about to experience tomorrow when
uh,
Trump is sworn into office?
oh boy,
Oh,
Many people would claim, at the
talking
very
about
least.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
jizz in my
Well,
pants.
I don't know. It sounds like Ben Shapiro is not having any orgasmic rises, or at
Yeah.
least his wife isn't.
Yeah,
So,
but there from that line it goes into a real wonky ass prog solo. Kind of the ghost of Matthias Eklund is haunting whatever studio they're in.
oh,
Um,
well, since we're talking about kind of funny lines, I just want
yeah.
to call this one out that I wrote down at 8:16. He rhymes demons in with whisper in. That every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, what?
That's like some Avril Lavigne style rhyming.
Yeah, that was kind of my take.
Um, yeah, there's a I apparently there's a flugelhorn breakdown at the 8 minute mark as well, in addition to being totally in the outro. I mean,
Hmm.
Bjorn, he does some really great falsettos. He does
Hmm.
a wild one at 10:40, and then he does a
Hmm.
sustained falsetto at the 11 minute mark into a chuggy instrumental break. And I remember that chuggy instrumental break. Like that's kind of the standout part of the song. It's memorable, and you're like, okay, this is kind of soil worky. He does some good singing, but overall, it's kind of a Frankenstein of a song, you know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Little bit like some of their early stuff in that way, where
yeah,
it's like they had multiple different songs and they just kind of stitched them together and were like, okay, we'll make this work. And I think overall it works, but it's sprawling and it's sort of not really focused. But
right.
you get a little of everything, including I think this is the first time. So at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, there is cowbell in the mix,
Oh
and I
yeah.
am fairly certain this is the first recorded use of cowbell in a Soilwork song. So we have to call that out. But I don't know if I liked it. It's just like, what is going on here? It's too progressive for my taste.
Bastion leaving his mark on the band.
Yeah, it's like what? Oh
I'm
man,
gonna.
Dirk would never have done the cowbell.
Do you think he snuck
Well,
it in
maybe.
ironically? He's like some young
Maybe.
kid who's like, the boomers will love this.
He's like, this song is so ridiculous. We just gotta take it up one little extra notch.
Yeah. I mean, do you have more thoughts on this sprawling? Uh,
Um, well, let's see. So I did want to call out our mini segment, Bring the Mosh. Because so like we were saying, at about 8 minutes 43 seconds, it like almost ends. It cuts to just the piano for a few seconds, but then it comes back with kind of a brutal breakdown at 8 minutes and 53. So, it hits pretty hard, has some real like dirty bluesy guitar riffage chugging in there. I thought that part was pretty rad. So, I'd like to call that out when I see it.
yeah, they do have some that kind of bluesy southern stuff is really kind of ever since the Panic broadcast is really
Yeah, it's
seeped.
become a part of their sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it too.
So, uh, if that's kind of all our thoughts on the music, it is time for our segment. Video killed the Mellow Death Star. And I think I'm just gonna keep this open since every single track has a video. I will be breaking down this one. And so sometimes bands will have a longer song and then they will make kind of the video edit of that song. I know Sentence did that with what is it? No One Here or No One
Hmm.
There.
No one
That's a
there.
bit longer and they trimmed it down like 2 minutes to because it's like a 6 minute song. They trimmed it down to about four so that it works with a video. It's a little more palatable. Soilwork did not do that here.
You know what? Let me just interject too, because I'm pretty sure on Light the Torch, that's the one with the first, is that the first one with the little bucket head guys?
Yes.
And that one, they trimmed down like 10 seconds to eliminate a solo, I recall. There's
Yeah.
like just a short little bit with, it's like, why did they edit that out? That was like a cool guitar riff, but they took it out to shorten the song. Like it's not even that long of a song. But they did not do that here. I think you're
No,
about
they
to
did
say.
not. Not at all. And I mean, we'll talk about it after I get through the breakdown, but yeah, so this is the video. A female Triton emerges from the sea and is found by an average woman walking along, and they take a train ride through the city and they walk through a forest, and the female Triton lays down and sleeps, and then the average lady wakes her. They walk some more. They're back in the city, and the lady buys her some groceries, and they're drinking whatever Swedish beverage they have. And then they notice there's some blinking lights on her bodice and her trident. And they go back to the sea, and she collapses on the beach before she can actually make it back into the water. And the average woman tries to wake her but can't. And then she turns away, and the female Triton arises, waves goodbye, and goes back into the sea. And that
And it takes
happens.
16 minutes.
It takes 16 and a half minutes. It's shot in slow motion. It is it is the concept of David Anderson, and it seemed like he was just casting around and he was like, "Well, I know my wife is free this day, and we also have our cosplay friend. She's in. Let's do this whole video." And it's nothing.
Yeah,
It's a
there's no plot. It's
it's
like
a
It's
confused
so
lady
dumb.
led around town, goes back to the water. But did she really buy groceries? I only recall that at this point when she goes in the convenience store and she comes out with like
Just a
some
couple of
Hennessy or
beers or
something.
something,
yeah.
I
I'm like,
thought.
it's so this mom's actually kind of a party animal. She's not like a regular mom. She's a cool mom.
That's true.
But she gives her the booze and then the gems on the lady's trident and armor, they start glowing. It's like, okay, maybe she's allergic or something. I don't
Oh
know what's
yeah.
going on.
It's the roofie alarm.
I'd also
Oh, she's not a regular mom at all. She's a
Yeah.
I'd
It's
I
also
a
don't
like
know.
to point out that at the beginning, the song, it like the words that flash up on the screen are an original soundtrack by Soilwork, as if it was composed specifically for this terrible video.
right. And
It's their student film.
it it is. It's a student film. And it's a 3 minute idea stretched painfully in slow motion, and like it'll go to like weird colors at times.
They love their just weird post effects.
Yeah. Like who do you
That's
think
going to be a
sneaking into
running
the
theme with
studio
this
that's
album,
like,
by the way.
huh?
That's going to be a running theme with this album, by the way. All these
Yeah.
videos.
So I mean, I urge the listener, like, you can watch it if you want, but it's just a song and
I think
ladies walking.
I think our I think our friend Silent Toxic 707 on YouTube summed it up pretty well when they said, "I'm 100% content in saying that Soilwork and Night Flight Orchestra, which is Speedstrid's other band with Dave Anderson, have left me wanting or needing absolutely no more slow motion videos of chicks walking places."
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly.
Oh man. is it Leonard Maltin who would always have the phrase that a movie was marred by overlength?
I think it
Yes.
Or maybe that's
was.
just a reviewer thing in general, but yeah, that applies here, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the song didn't have 16 minutes of ideas, the video absolutely did
Oh man.
not. It didn't have
Yeah.
six.
Oh boy.
Right. There's absolutely fewer ideas in the video than there were in the song.
So we watched it though.
Hmm.
Um, so let's move on to track number 2 on this EP, Feverish. And this song starts out like it's like an 80s synth rock song. Like I almost expected just the name like John Carpenter to appear like before my mind because it sounds like the soundtrack to like a
Hmm.
late 70s or early 80s kind of either like horror or like noir film. And I was there for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
it's
maybe if we're kind of leaving the video Killed the Melodist Star segment open, I think because the video for this one is kind of like in a grindhouse style, like a
yeah.
70s horror grindhouse movie. And the music really fits with the theme of how they did this video. But before we get more into the video, let's talk about the music a bit more. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I like the sound of this one.
yeah, it's got that kind of 80s hard rock, a lot of synths in there. Um one thing I like is that it's at the 2:30-ish mark. He says the inevitable urge and the way he says inevitable. He just bounces. Yeah. This one's good. There's a there's violins in this song and they do kind of like a violinish solo at 350 and I do not need it. Which
It
is
is bad there, but then
yeah.
it shows up in the outro and it's really good.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, what? How did they, like, they obviously know what they're doing sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, how did they miss it so hard during the solo? It was weird.
It was weird because like this, I like this song. I think it's good. It's kind of repetitive in a way that I like. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, and I love violins and songs. Shout out to the band Sabrosa, who has two of them, and I love all their stuff. But yeah, that part just it almost kills the song for me. Um, so someone make an edit of the song without that section, and we're good.
Yeah,
Uh,
they should
hmm,
have done the video edit. God
yeah.
damn it, guys.
Let's see, brother Dave, what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you with a lot of that. I liked it has a nice big guitar tone. It's still a bit mid-paced,
Hmm.
and at this point, it's kind of a concept album. I wonder if it's gonna pick up. Because even when they're doing some blast beats, like it's blast beats over a mid tempo, which is kind of a Soilwork thing.
Yeah, lately it has been. It's
Yeah.
like more of a like this album and the last album had some of that. Maybe a little bit before that, but it's like their
Hmm.
current drummer is doing that a little bit more, I feel like.
Yeah, technique wise, I like at 136 they do this ugly chromatic thing where they're hitting a whole bunch of notes that are all in a row, so they're not in the scale that they're playing in because you never get like three or four notes all in a row like that. But I like how it sounds and they bring it up a couple of times. But again, kind of like the first one, I didn't feel like there was a great big hook here to grab onto. It's a decent song. I like it more than Wisp of the Atlantic, but I'm not wowed yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I felt, and this one clocks in at almost 6 minutes. And I felt like, Paul, you kind of mentioned this, that it gets a little repetitive. I mean, I don't know how many times they say feverish like this in the song, but it's a lot. Like they probably could have trimmed this down a couple minutes and had all the same feel and themes and everything. And another one that's possibly a little bit marred by overlength. And but it has some fun stuff at 344. I think there was some like sort of staccato synthy chugs, which a little bit sounded more, and I haven't listened to a lot of Night Flight Orchestra, but it sounded a little bit more like something from that band bleeding over, which I feel like that happens from time to time now as they've been in both bands for many years and kind of, you know, crossing over styles or just playing whatever they like. But I thought that part was pretty cool too. And yeah, I don't know, the chorus hits, even though it is a little repetitive. Um, so yeah, let's get into the music video though. So this and the next two songs on the album are all basically part of a sort of a cohesive story or a trilogy, which they call the Feverish Trinity. And the Soilwork YouTube site, they have a trailer for these three videos that kind of explains the concept behind it. And I'll just read how that opens up and how they explain it without going through the entire explanation. But it starts out, it says, while the background and the motives are still a bit sketchy and the band seems reluctant to reveal too many details, in 2019, Soilwork, the band that should be dead by now, felt their temperature rising and decided to start releasing what would become known as the Feverish Trinity, a trilogy of songs with accompanying videos that, according to Soilwork, would celebrate the Babylonian death goddesses that once made the world a more feverish and exciting place. So that's kind of the large concept behind these three videos. And like
Can
I mentioned
I
before, oh yeah,
can I jump in here and just say
oh
that
sure.
you said that exposition in about, I don't know, 20 seconds. The woman narrating that like intro video somehow spreads that narration out over like 2 minutes or
Oh
something.
yeah,
It's
it is this.
insane how slow she is talking.
Oh, I thought that too. I was
They
like,
shot
maybe I
her in
should.
slow motion.
I put it on 1.5 speed and it was still kind of slow.
I know. I think it's like a 7 or 8 minute long video that kind of synopsizes, if that's a word, the three videos here and kind of gives the overview of the concept and everything. So if people want even more details, you can go look it up. It's interesting, but that's the large concept. Celebrating the Babylonian death goddesses that once made the world a more feverish and exciting place. Exciting is one word for it. So this video, like I said before, it's kind of filmed in sort of a 70s grindhouse style, but this one, it opens up with sort of a flying shot over a lake and some woods. So we're out in nature, and then we kind of zoom in, and there's a couple of girlfriends walking through the woods. They're having a nice time, doing a little day drinking, maybe grab some Hennessy from that lady in the last movie, and they're just out having fun, smoking cigs, drinking their booze. And then they come upon a boombox in the woods with a tape of Soilwork's song Feverish. It's what's listed on the tape. And so they put that in, they start playing it, and they start dancing around this boombox to the song. And then after a bit, they seem to be sort of transfixed in a trance, just staring at each other, not moving. And then the tape in the boombox starts on fire. And then we see there's sort of this ominous figure that appears from the woods, all clad in black and like with sort of runic markings on their face, looking like a high priest of death. The boombox is consumed in flames, and then the smoke from the fire comes and it enters each of the ladies. So then they're apparently possessed. They resume dancing around the blaze, but now they're dancing kind of in reverse, and they're taken over by this ominous spirit. And that's kind of where this video ends. So part one, it's like, all right, out for a nice little stroll with your buddy, and next thing you know, possessed by the devil or the Babylonian death goddess, perhaps.
Moral of the story, don't listen to Soilwork.
This
Well,
is,
not. This is the second time someone's come upon Soilwork in the
yeah.
woods and just played it and been kind of possessed by it.
Yep. Or
I
in
forget
the
what.
wild that
Yeah.
they turned into ghosts because they found Soilwork in that warehouse that one time.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen when you encounter these guys out
It's
just
not
on a
gonna be
walk.
good.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a fine video. Not a ton happens, but it kind of builds some suspense. And it's fun to know that it's part one of this three-part little saga that we'll get into.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to track number three, Desperado. Brother John,
Yeah, so
thoughts?
again, this one has sort of an atmospheric intro like an old horror movie. Kind of similar to the last one, but I mean, it sounds different. But then it goes into some guitar riffage overlaid with some synthy elements. It's dark, it's pummeling, and this song doesn't let up. I think, well, this one and the next one are probably my two favorite on the album, but this one I think is a lot better than Feverish. It just kind of grabs you a little bit more and it doesn't seem as repetitive. Also, not as long. So they kind of get in and they get out and do what they came to do. And let's see, this one has a really good chorus. And oh, and at the end of the chorus, I want to call out our little mini segment, Sick Riffs and Tasty Licks.
I can also play some pretty hot licks too.
Because from a minute 40 to a minute 47, it sounds kind of like the synths and the guitars are doing like a little musical crescendo together. And I don't know, that part just really slapped, I thought. And they repeat that a couple times in the song, but very
I had
nice.
also noted that they had a cool transition back into verse two at that point. So
Yeah. So,
that's
I mean,
been
it hit
good.
us both. So it must have been good. But yeah, this song basically rocks start to finish, has a good flow, doesn't overstay its welcome, good intensity. It's like a pretty fast one. It's got that catchy chorus. So this song slaps. Dave?
Yeah. Yeah, this is absolutely the best song so far. Um, I have written best chorus so far. We're getting our classic Bjorn Speedstrid vocal swells going on. Um, and some like a distorted vocal swell thing at the beginning that almost isn't recognizable as vocals. It's almost noise. But it's a cool thing that he does. Um, yeah. I mean, this one's a good, solid song. It's not any of the highs that we've had in some previous albums, but it's the high point on this album so far. And it's worth listening to.
Yeah, I think Sven is really having fun with the bloops on the synth in this one.
Hmm. Yeah, Sven is finally getting a time to shine. He's
Yeah,
been so absent recently.
I know. And there is a nice breakdown at 2:45, and Speed is like growling while holding the Desperado, and then it goes into the solo, and that part is fun. Yeah, this one's a bop. This is good. Um, so Brother John, take us into part
Yeah,
two of
let's
this music video trilogy.
yes. So part two, this is my favorite one of the three videos. Still same kind of 70s grindhouse style, but now it kind of enters, we're going up the steps towards this mid-century modern house, and these two ladies are now hanging out, having some sort of dance party slash satanic ritual party. They're dancing, they're still drinking and smoking, and watching over them is an ominous lady with runes painted on her face. So you're like, okay, I got these creepy, sort of otherworldly demon people looking on.
Babylonian death goddesses,
Yes,
apparently.
that's what it is. And then the two ladies, they start putting some runic paint on their faces too. So there's like major kind of satanic panic vibes here in this one. And then as they dance around the room, we see there's a man tied up on the floor. We don't really know who this guy is. But one of the ladies retrieves a handgun from a drawer in which looks like there's also some cocaine in a cellophane bag. And then she proceeds to shoot the man multiple times. And I will note, she does this from probably like 8 feet away. And as I saw that, I was like, okay, I can't throw something into the garbage can from like 4 feet away. If I was going to shoot someone and I didn't want to like miss and just like fill my floor full of holes, I would definitely get a little closer, just like pop them in the head just to be sure. But no, she's confident with her accuracy and she hits him. So, no problems here. But kind of made me laugh. I'm
Maybe
like,
maybe that's why
lady,
she's
like you're
shooting
gonna.
multiple times.
Oh, I guess maybe she did miss the first couple ones,
And it's his
but
floor, probably. I'm imagining
oh,
it was a B&E here.
I did not put two and two together on that, but I bet you're right because this was a pretty like large, fancy looking house. These ladies, I don't know, they didn't seem rich. They just seemed like a couple of, forest wanderers. And so yeah, maybe they're just going to kill somebody and drink their booze. I don't know. It's left to the viewer's imagination, I suppose. But let's see. So, anyways, she seems to kill the guy. And then there's a quick shot of the ominous devil lady consumed in flames in the room, but that's the last we see of that. But she does look pleased about the sacrifice. So now the two ladies are on the prowl at night, and they go to an old car junkyard, and they're just spray painting runes on the junk cars. And a man approaches, presumably the owner of this junkyard, and they shoot him too and kick him and start smashing the car. And all this while ominous devil figures watch them. Then they drop a lighter on the car and it ignites in flames. They just peace on out. Scene.
When they're smashing the cars, what instrument, like you, what do you think they're using to smash those cars?
Oh man, I'd have to watch it back. It was like some kind of metal rod. I don't know if it was a golf club
It
or
looked like
like
a
a
weed
long
whacker to
crowbar or
me.
something. Oh,
It
really?
was shaped like a I was like, why do they have two weed whackers that are smashing car windows? Yeah, like a
It
baseball bat or like a metal pipe or something. But the way it's shaped, I'm like, "Oh, I've done my yard before. That's just a weed whacker."
yeah,
I didn't notice that.
it looked like a shovel with a really small head to me. So I'm wondering if it was like a garden hoe or something. But it did seem like a weird tool to be using.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was again, it was David Anderson being like, what do I have in my shed? Okay, here's the props.
So yeah, just a couple of possessed ladies on the prowl, sacrificing dudes.
All
It's fun
right.
stuff.
Well, let's see what happens in the next part. Well, we go to track number 4, Death Diviner. Brother Dave.
So at this point, I have resigned myself to the fact that we're just going to have mid-paced songs on this album. But this
The
one's
last
pretty
one was
good.
pretty quick.
I guess it was a little quicker, but we're not hitting the tempo that you would expect for like a standard Soilwork album. That that's what I'm saying.
All right, fair,
Uh,
fair.
but this one, it's nice and driving. It's got a good riff, and that riff that they start with becomes the verse riff, and they do some nice variation on it to keep it interesting once the vocals come in. And catchiest chorus by far, I think, on this album. I've actually had this one in my head for the last couple of days, especially the way it has that vocal rise to that leading note in kind of the middle of it. Uh, so good.
Hmm.
This one does a good job of building tension and giving you that payoff. This song, it slaps.
Yeah,
Brother John?
agreed. Yeah, it's hard for me to say like, do I like this one more or Desperado more? I like them both a lot. I think I like this one a little bit more. It is a little bit more mid-tempo, but I feel like just the chorus is even better. And then, at 229, they get to the part it's like when the skies remained an empty threat above me, and then the double kick is just pummeling behind the chorus. That part fucking hits. So, yeah, this one's got a lot of good emotion to it. Um, yeah, they lay some blast beats on us midway through, and then come back into a huge chorus. Overall, it's a pretty epic jam. I like it.
Yeah, I mean this one's a bop. It's just groovy and speed is really soaring on this one. He does a lot of fun stuff with
Mm.
his vocals. Um and it's nice because it's really the first time he's really shining, I think, on this EP. And standing out. I'm like, okay, it's great great to see him really kind of taking the center stage. Um, so yeah, I like this one. It's catchy, but yeah, it's mid-tempo. Again, it seems a bit repetitive, but it's done so well, and they do build that tension, like you say, brother Dave. So I like it. But let's move on to part three of the Feverish trilogy.
All right. So
Feverish Trinity.
yeah, the Feverish
Oh,
Trinity. It is a trilogy of songs, but it is the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, even. Of the Babylonian death goddesses. So this is our final grindhouse style film, and here we see the ladies that looks like it must be the next day. They're still drinking and smoking. Now they're hanging out by the water, although we don't see the Triton woman from the Wisp of the Atlantic video, although it seems like it may have been filmed right in that same area
I
by the
think it's the
water.
same bridge that's in the
Yeah.
background of both.
Yeah. So they're hanging out, seemingly contemplating the events of the past day, and they're sitting on a tree that's kind of fallen over, partly in the water, and also on that tree, kind of between them and the land, is there's a snake, but it doesn't seem to be threatening them. So I don't know, it's just kind of there. Um, but then they're walking through town, and a homeless man approaches him, and it seems to be the same guy they shot in the junkyard. And they think about that guy, and then they get freaked out and they run away. And so, after a little bit, they come across who I can only imagine is the eponymous Death Diviner, and he's an ominous man who stares at them as his eyes glow red, and then they stand transfixed. Then lightning comes from between his raised hands, and it shines against them on their faces as they stand still. And the ominous devil lady stands behind them. Fade to black.
Some real good graphics on this one.
Yeah, some kind of cheesy special effects. So I don't know. It's just like a lot of weird people doing a lot of weird, naughty things in these videos.
My favorite special effect is near the end. I think it's after the lightning, where it's the two ladies standing there, and then it's like the guy's face is superimposed so that each of his eyes is like covering one of their heads. And
Yeah,
so they look like goofy aliens that are just like a head with a big eye in it. And it's like, what is this filmmaking decision you've made? It's
yeah.
interesting.
I don't know. Well,
yeah.
overall, I did enjoy all
Oh.
these three videos, and I thought, I like when there's sort of some sort of narrative, even though we don't
Mhm.
totally understand everything there is to understand here, probably. But it's a fun style of video, fun concept, and worth checking out. More
Yeah,
so, I would
well,
say, than Wisp of the Atlantic.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, this is what David Anderson had to say about these songs in an interview with Metal Imperium. I guess the whole storyline, starting with Feverish, having very carnal needs. Then you evolve into Desperado when you become desperate, and then Death Diviner is when you realize that you screwed up and you have to repent. And I think that's pretty fairly reflected in the videos.
I don't know that they ever repent. They just kind of run away from the guy that they thought they killed.
Well, they realize
And
they screwed up, and then they
seem to get
repent by having lightning
Beg,
shot from eyes.
maybe beg
kind of
for
seems like they
forgiveness.
get repossessed.
Yeah, it's like were they trying to like bargain with the guy who possessed them in the first place, the Death Diviner, or what? Who knows?
We may
Yeah.
never know.
My summary of these three videos was one, women drinking and dancing to this very song. Two, ladies go on a murder and vandalism rampage. Three, ladies reflect on their life choices.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Like there was reflection for sure, but I'm not really
Yeah.
sure if they came to any concrete conclusions about
Yeah, I don't know how much repentance there really was.
their past actions.
It's just that gif from Anchorman of, wow, that really escalated quickly. We found a boombox and then we're doing B&Es and murdering
Yep.
guys.
I stabbed a man with a trident.
Well, yeah.
Rick killed a man.
Oh. Well, let's move on to the final track on this EP, The Nothingness and the Devil. And this one has some real pummeling drumming and also some real twangy guitars. Kind of another 80s rocker.
Hmm.
Uh,
A lot of
I,
80s on this album.
yeah, very 80s. Um, I like the drifting, kind of spacey end to this song. It's just like
Mhm.
synthy bloops and some quiet guitar. Noodling is not the right word, but just like strumming and it kind
Yeah.
of fades
I called it
slowly.
proggy riffing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I called it mournful guitar picking and synthy noodling. A
Okay,
little more on the
synthy
prog rock
noodling.
side. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're all kind of hearing that same thing.
okay. I really enjoyed it, you know. But yeah, again, kind of Sven Carlson, a lot of synths, a lot of bloops. I like it. Brother John.
I think this is maybe my least favorite song on the album. Not that I thought it was bad, but just compared to the other ones, I felt like, it didn't really grab me as much. Maybe because it was a little more hard rock sounding versus like metal sounding. But there's some cool guitar stuff at 242, I noted. There's like
Hmm.
a fun kind of guitar solo part. The solo isn't like insane or anything, but it just had a really good groove to it, I thought. So I thought it sounded pretty good. And then that outro I thought was pretty nice too. So overall, it's good. Not great, not terrible. It's good.
I also liked the solo. I thought it had a cool use of subtle bends and slides kind of all throughout it. Just nice from a technique point of view. And then the other thing that I liked about this one was the main riff is alternating 7/4 and 8/4. And then when the bass comes into it, it like is accenting certain notes, so it gives it a really like driving feel. I like what they do there. But I also think this song is kind of forgettable afterwards. Death Diviner sticks with me. Desperado's a decent one. And I have trouble remembering what the nothingness and the devil even is once it's over. So I I think I'm more in the Brother John camp on this one. Um,
Yeah.
but
I think
but
this
we
one,
are
the chorus kind of sticks in my head a little bit on this one, but yeah, overall, a little more forgettable than the prior two anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
I should say, yeah, I don't love this one. I think it's fine. You know, it's got
Oh,
some good
Paul,
moments, but
some
walking back your
backpedaling.
prior
no, I
comments.
think that you took what I was saying is more positive than I intended. So
That happens sometimes.
yeah,
But we do have one final music video to go into here, and
take
this
us
one is,
away.
I mean, it's special. Uh, there's there's a dude. He looks evil. He might just be crazy. He's like covered in soot or something. It's obviously a white guy, but his whole body is black.
It's blackface,
Yes, it's blackface. It is
Yeah.
very racist.
but
No,
it's like
it's
devil blackface though. So slightly different than like a super offensive blackface. Is this the
yeah,
same
no,
Death Diviner guy from the last
it
video?
kind of seems like maybe, but I wasn't. It's like
I wasn't
theoretically
sure.
not linked. I think it might have been the same actor at least. But he's crazier hair. He's anyway, he is bound to a chair with his, we zoom out and we see his whole body is blackened and there's a dancing occult lady who's like dancing around him and then dancing outside with like magical effects in front of her and then sometimes there's other like uh robed acolytes around here. She's kind of like dancing in three different locales, that they cut back and forth between. One acolyte brings her a knife. She licks it, which causes blood to come out of the side of her mouth, not her tongue where she licked the knife. Uh, then she touches his wrist, kind of in a stabbing motion, but kind of in a gentle touching motion. And that impressive electricity effect that we saw in the previous video starts spurting out of his wrists. Um, and then she does another downward stabbing motion kind of off screen. I'm assuming like towards his ankles, but it's not really clear because she doesn't get that far down. So maybe the knife shoots lasers or something because more lightning starts coming from the bottom of the screen. I feel like it was kind of implying a crucifixion theme with the hands and the feet, but
Oh,
maybe I'm reading too far into this. Um, these effects are terrible. Now, his arms and legs are not black anymore, but he's still got a blackened torso. She blindfolds him and then stabs him sort of in the torso. He looks dead, but now his chest isn't black either. She continues dancing with the knife and doing some magic stuff. Then we see the chair that he was sitting in. It has the pentadent. It's got 5 points that the lady from Wisp of the Atlantic had been holding. It is on the chair, and the chair is on fire. The end.
oh yeah. We called that a trident before, but it does have
Yeah.
5 points. So you are right. A pentadent. I didn't even
Which is
realize.
kind of dumb, right?
I'm not sure about that. If it's not, it should be. One thing though,
Uh,
you kind of glossed right over this, but this ceremonial blade looked like something straight off Worf, the Klingon from the Next
oh,
Generation's wall.
100%.
It is a Klingon ceremonial blade, and she was using it for ceremonial purposes. So I think that bears mentioning.
My
Very
my
important.
my one addition is that you didn't just really hammer on how much like finger beckoning there is that she's doing to the camera. It's all
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, there's
yeah, it's
so much.
yeah.
It's kind of like Wisp of the Atlantic where there's not much going on here. Do they have 5 minutes of stuff?
No.
No.
No, just a lot of finger beckoning. Well, and you said that I forget how you described her, but you didn't say. She's wearing like one of those half masks that has like like curvy devil
Oh, that's
horns coming
true.
out of it. So she looks pretty cool, and you know she's evil, and she's up to some kind of ceremonial, no good, basically.
Yeah. And I guess the guy just dies. I was expecting him to be like reborn or something after this ritual, but it seems like it's just a ritualistic killing.
Yeah. He starts with clothes. After she touches him with the blade and the lightning is shooting around, he ends up shirtless, and he seems to be dead.
Yeah. Poor dude.
Yeah, man,
Maybe.
everybody's just getting wasted by ladies in these movies.
Yeah. They're finally getting they feel less tokenist, right?
Hmm.
Like they're
Oh yeah, well
serving
they're
a
the main characters here.
right, they're the main characters and they don't feel like they're just there for sex appeal or whatever. So props to Soilwork on that front.
Yeah, that was all David Anderson. That was very intentional on his part. He had said something about how he God, I wish I had that interview pulled up. I'll try to find it. But he said like I was inspired by women and I hate he specifically said that he hates Trump and the kind of like Trump alpha males that are depicted and it's just boring to watch metal band, a bunch of middle-aged dudes playing their songs. He's like, I tried to, represent the females a bit.
Yeah.
with
Yeah, I mean it
with
would be
some
great if they
student
were
student films.
yeah, it'd be great if they were represented in the bands themselves, but maybe that's the next step. um, for metal overall. But
Yeah.
I do like that these videos are not just them playing in a warehouse. I like
Yes.
that we don't see the bands at all. I would 100% take this over uh, any of these videos over like shots from the road
Yeah.
or them on a stage. Though if it was them on a stage having a beef with In Flames, I would still take that.
Yes.
Yeah, well then you got some narrative to it. It's not
Right.
just like concert footage or whatever. I always like when there's some story to be told, even if it's
Hmm.
kind of a weak story. Makes for a better music video.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's kick it over to our resident rankings expert, Brother John.
Yes, well, our final segment is Bop or Flop, where we decide, does the album slap or is it crap? We have honed our patented six-tier ranking system, going from six all the way down to one. We have the Bops. A perfect six, unassailable. This is metal incarnate. A five, like to stand on that thing, a banger that we could easily listen to again and again. Or a four, or that's doable. A very solid album worth checking out. And there's the flops. A three, it lacks zazz. A two is just straight crap, and a one belongs in a garbage can. It is a disappointment to its father and the listener. So, boys, I guess I could go first. I have not gone first for a bit, I think, but this one, it's basically Soilwork's prog and concept album. It's not bad, but it's pretty different from anything else that they've put out. It's got some bops in it, like we were saying, especially Desperado and whatever the one right after that is. Now I'm Death Diviner. Those two, I think, basically save the album for me by being like very solid. I like those songs a lot. I would come back and listen to those, if not the whole album. So, you know, kind of depends what I'm in the mood for. If I would revisit this one too much, A Wisp of the Atlantic, it's long, it's sprawling. I don't think I would really put it on too often, but the middle three, the Feverish Trinity, I could see myself coming back to those. So overall, not a bad album, not my typical go-to. I will say that's doable, and I'm going to rate it a four.
That's fair. Um, Paul, you had talked about kind of Dave Anderson's thoughts in making this entire album. Not knowing that, this is what I had written. This feels like a passion project, or feels at best like a passion project, and at worst, self-indulgent, which seems like that's really what he was going for. So, I mean, he nailed it, I guess. Uh, it's it's different enough from what we've come to expect from Soilwork that I feel like it may have better been spun off as its own thing rather than diluting the band's style. Because now, like, what is Soilwork as a band? What am I even expecting when I pick up a Soilwork album? There's some good riffs in here, but outside of like the chorus of Death Diviner, nothing there, like nothing really grabs me. There's some novelty factor with the whole full video for the entire album thing, but I feel like that doesn't really have staying power. I'm gonna have to say that this one just lacks zazz.
I was flummoxed as to how to rate this album. First, because it's an EP, right? It's only 5 songs.
It's only like 5 minutes less than their early albums,
That
though,
is
right?
true.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
pretty long as far as EPs go. Like
yeah,
usually you're thinking like 20 minutes on an EP, I want to say. But this is
right.
what, 36 or something?
So really, I mean, it's a 4 song EP and then a 16-minute
Magnum
song.
opus
It's sort of its
tacked on the
own
front.
thing. On one hand, I like that Soilwork is like kind of pushing themselves and experimenting. We talk about Amon Amarth putting out the same album every fucking 2 years,
Hmm.
and they do it well. Soilwork could be doing that. Um,
Can I
so I
back
lo
up actually? Can I give it a 3.5? I don't want it to be ranked alongside Sworn to a Great Divide.
Yeah.
Give
That
it
is a
a
3.5.
3.6 Rontgen. Not great, not terrible.
Oh, next season we'll add
Done.
that
So
ranking.
is it our new new middle of the road ranking?
Yeah. Um, so so I like that they're doing some experimenting. But on On the other hand, I don't know if I need them to be experimenting to do a 16-minute kind of prog song. But I mean, do we need anything? Yeah, it's artists trying to put something out there in the world. Yes, it's maybe not the most successful thing, but they tried it and it's fine. I think it suffers, I think especially the first track, suffers from either doing too much or not enough. They should have either cut it off at the 8 minutes or zazzed it up even more. The other four tracks are fine. You know, I actually like Feverish. That one sticks with me. Death Diviner's a real bop. And really, I'm right there with Brother Dave. I gotta give it a 3.5. It's good. I think it's worthwhile to listen to it once or twice, but it's not one I'll be revisiting. Well, Soil Mates, that's all for this episode. Stay tuned for the next one, where we will discuss Soilwork's exultant 2022 album, Overgiven Hatin'. Until then, stay metal, my brothers.
Hell yeah, brother.